Hey, it's Jacob. Welcome to this new video. Today I want to talk about what Python scripting is. I want to give you 10 real-world problems Python scripting can solve in your life. I organized those examples in increasing order of importance, so watch till the end if you don't want to miss out on the best ones. Before getting started into those 10 real-world problems, maybe you heard people talk about Python scripting without really explaining what it is. If you're like me and you're not a professional programmer, then maybe it's a little bit confusing to know what Python scripting can do for you and what real-world problems it can solve. And it might be a little bit frustrating too, because everybody acts as if it was obvious, but it's not. And it might make you feel like you should get it, but you're not smart enough to get it, when that's not what's happening. Or maybe you heard people talk about it in vague terms, and they don't give any example, which is even more confusing. If you feel like they actually don't know what they're talking about, maybe you're right. People love to get theoretical when they have no idea how to apply things in the real world. Here is what I hear when I ask people what Python scripting is. The answer I get can be summarized as it's great. I hear things like you can create anything you want with it. Cool, but like what specifically? Or I hear like you'll become better at problem solving. And I mean, sure, but so will you by actually solving problems. Or sometimes they'll tell you what it is. Python is a programming language, and a scripting language specifically is a language where instructions are written for a runtime environment. It doesn't require a compilation step, and the instructions are interpreted. If you're like me and you're not a professional programmer, then you have no idea what I'm talking about. Plus, I would argue to not figure out what I'm talking about, because who cares? We want to know what problems it can solve. If you don't get it and you feel angry about it, then chill out, because it's not that you don't get it, it's that there is nothing to get. It's just a vague idea. People have no idea what they're talking about. So what you really need now are real-world examples of how Python scripting can solve problems. And I'm going to give you 10 of them. First real-world problem that Python scripting can help you solve is wasting your time. If you're wasting your time doing mindless work, then Python scripting can help you solve that problem. Here is one specific example. If you have to look for information in different files and write a report about it, then Python scripting can do that for you. The format of the report can be Excel, Word, PDF, and so on and so forth. It doesn't matter. That's problem number one, wasting your time. If you have that problem, think about Python scripting. Problem number two, unnecessary frictions. And let me give you an example right now. Let's say at your work, every single day, you need to open a file or a folder, and it's the same file or folder every single day. It can be an Excel file, a Word document, a text file, whatever it is. So of course, that's just an example because that's something everybody can relate with. But in your life, where do you have unnecessary frictions? Another real-world example that can actually eliminate unnecessary frictions is the following. Let's say you're writing on a regular basis, either articles or books or whatever it is, then you probably have to capitalize the titles of the things that you're writing. So to do that, maybe you go on a website and you put the title into that website, which will capitalize that title properly. Well, you can implement the algorithm to capitalize the title properly and then process your text file to capitalize it automatically. So this one is probably not going to apply to you because it's a very specific example, but it's just to give you an idea of a real-world problem that Python scripting can solve. Problem number three, making mistakes. If you are applying a process where you are likely to make a lot of mistakes, anything that is error-prone or inconsistent, Python scripting can help you with. If you need to get information from different places like Excel files, text files, Word documents, and you need to do a lot of copying and pasting into one place, then Python scripting can help you do that more reliably. Another example is executing a complicated process, checklist, or list of steps, call it whatever you want, but anything where the order is critical. It's one thing to do everything well, it's another thing to do everything in the right order as well. Python scripting can help you do both systematically. Real-world problem number 4, using your willpower. Difficult tasks where remembering what you have to do requires some willpower. It can be decisions to make based on a lot of parameters. For example, if you have to generate a report by finding information in X file and you have to look for information in Y file, and based on the value of those parameters, you need to make a decision about what to do, then Python can do that for you, provided that you can explain in Python scripting terms what your decision-making process is. Real-world problem number 5, checklists and critical tasks. If you have a critical task, then you probably need to make sure that it's done well. And so you need a checklist for it. Python scripting can help you check that everything was done well one by one. Here is an example of a check that Python can do for you that you will understand. Let's say you have an Excel report with tons of data in it and you want to check if you have redundancies. Of course, it's just an example, and Python scripting can apply a lot more sophisticated checklists, but that's something that will help you see what Python scripting can do in the real world. Real world problem number 6, forgetting things. And let me give you the specific example right away. You want to know how much money you'll have left at the end of the month based on the money you currently have and the expenses you'll have during the rest of the month? Then Python scripting can do that. It's really easy to forget that you need to pay for something during the month, and then at the end of the month, you're in the red just because you forgot about it. Well, if you implement that in a script, then it will never forget about it. And maybe you can tell me, well, just get a reminder app and it won't forget either. And of course that's true, but if you want to actually compute the money you have left at the end of the month, then it will be based on those information that you will have implemented and that Python won't forget. It's not just a reminder app. The point is, if there is a complex decision-making process based on information that you are likely to forget, then it'll make the right decision every single time. It's not just a reminder, it's going further than that. Real-world problem number 7, formatting files. If you have to format, let's say, an Excel file because it's extracted from an external platform, then you can do that systematically. It can also be about filtering the information so that you can read it easily. Sometimes you have files with tons and tons of information and only a small amount is relevant, so you can extract that information. Real world problem number 8, improving the quality of what you're doing. Let's take a very simple example. Let's say you're a graphic designer and you want to position a text relative to an image. It can be at 2/3 of the image or it can be at the center. You can use Python scripting in GIMP to do that more precisely than you. As a side note, it'll also be faster than you because you'll just have to click on a button. By the way, you can do pretty much you want to do on GIMP using Python. I'm talking about changing the colors, applying filters, changing the size of the text, adding text, and so on and so forth. And to come back to an earlier point, if you have a difficult process to follow, like adding the text, resizing the text, then changing the color, then positioning it, and then exporting the image into a PDF or a PNG, then you can do all of that with one click if you've created a Python script that does that. Real world problem number 9, comparing things. Let's say every single month you get an Excel report with tons and tons of data in it. Well, you probably don't need to read what was already there the previous month. What you want to see is probably what has changed, what was deleted, or what was added compared to the previous month. Well, you can create a Python script that will give you exactly that and nothing else. Real world problem number 10, increasing your capabilities. So again, let's take the example of the graphic designer. There are things as a graphic designer that you need to do and you won't know if it looks well before it's done. Let's take a very simple example just so you know what I'm talking about. Let's say you want to create a frame based on a small pattern. One way to do that is you copy that pattern and you rotate it 180 degrees and then you position it right under the first pattern and then you just take the whole thing and mirror it either to the left or to the right. Well, that process is systematic. So you can create a Python script and then do that with one click. So now in 3 or 4 seconds, you can create about 10 of them. So here it's a very simple example. So by hand to do one, it will take like maybe 30 seconds, something like that. So this is not a big deal, but do you really want to do 10 of them when it takes about 30 seconds? So theoretically, you can do that 10 times and it will take 5 minutes because it's 30 seconds times 10. But in the real world, you're probably not going to want to do that. So it'll change the number of things you can test in the real world. Because theoretically, you can test as many things as you want, provided that you have infinite amount of time. But in the real world, we don't have an infinite amount of time. And we don't have an infinite amount of willpower. I don't want to do 10 frames. And this is a very simplified process. Why am I taking a very simple example? Just so that you can relate with it. Because I'm not a graphic designer, and you probably aren't either. So we're not going to relate with those difficult examples. But what you can relate to is examples in your life. And I can't give you those examples because I don't know your work. I don't know what you're doing. So that's why you need to take those ideas and apply them to your work. That's why I gave you tons of examples. Now, if you want to get started with Python scripting, I know that it can be difficult when you're just a beginner. That's why I created a free online course to help you avoid wasting your time and energy. You can click on the link in the description to get it. Let me know in the comments what you think about the examples I gave you. Have a great day and see you in the next video.